Okay, so Buengwa Manufacturers Limited has budgeted the following information for 2024, right? So we have the budgeted data here. Okay, budgeted overheads 240,000. These budgeted overheads are the ones that we're going to need to absorb either through the material cost, the labor cost, machine hours, or budgeted labor hours. Okay, so we've got the budgeted overheads here. Let me highlight it in bold. Okay, so we've got the budgeted direct material cost, 160,000. Budgeted direct labor cost, 200,000. Budgeted machine hours, 12,000 hours. Budgeted labor hours, 30,000 hours. Budgeted units produced, 8,000 units. Oh, I forgot the formula for. You can also absorb overheads on number of units produced. Just means budgeted overheads divided by the budgeted number of units that will be produced. Okay, so the question reads, calculate the following overhead absorption rates or ARs on direct material cost, direct labor cost, prime cost, per machine hour, per labor hour, and per unit. So we start on material cost. We're just going to say budgeted overheads over, yes, yes, is that a question? Uh-huh. Is there any, uh-huh, and it's still giving you, it's your network, man. It's your network. Mm. Yeah, use the laptop, use the laptop, yes. Yes. No, 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 laptop is more better. Okay, more better. Sure. My colleagues, I think you need physical. Then you need physical lessons with me. Ah, yes. Okay. Anyway, do not worry. It's being recorded. It's being recorded. Yes. But you wanted to say something, madam? I think yeah, two. Oh, I saw. So I did. Was it? Yes. I think you might be two. So just ref- what you can do is just refer to the video, okay? Then uh, probably we just hope your network gets better. That's the only prayer here, that your network gets better. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. So we're calculating the overhead absorption rate based on direct material cost. So the budgeted overhead over the direct material cost times 100%. The budgeted overhead here 240,000. Material cost 160,000. Okay. So 240,000 divided by 160,000, what do we get? Remember, these costs come with a calculator. Okay, so 240,000 divided by 160,000, we get 1.5 times 100%. We get 150%. Okay, which means, colleagues, all right, if your overhead, for example, let's say your direct material cost, if your direct material cost, let's say, is 100,000, then it means your overhead is going to be 150% of this. Okay, 150% of 100,000 should be 150,000, if I'm not mistaken. Or yes, 150% of 100,000, 1.5 times 100, yes, 150,000. Okay, colleagues, if your direct material cost that you if your direct material cost is this, your direct material cost is 100,000, then it means your overhead, okay, your absorbed overhead, the overhead that you're going to incur. When you hear me say absorbed overhead, it's just the overhead that you're going to incur. Okay, you're going to say 150% times 100,000, which will give you 150,000. Is that okay, colleagues? Any questions? Okay. No, no. We are, assignment three, we'll start dealing with it soon. Okay. We'll deal with it soon, madam. We are doing accounting for overheads, overhead absorption. No, that was a good question, madam. Yes. Are there any questions, colleagues? Uh huh. If that's for example, if January comes and your material cost is 100,000, then the overhead that you're going to incur is going to be 150% of this 100,000, which is going to be 150,000. Yes. Consumer friendly, colleagues. Is this very simple? Yes. The overhead that you're going to incur, the electricity, the rent, it's going to be 150% of that 100,000 that you incur. Yes. Madam Catherine, you have a question? Okay. Next, we're going to huh? Yes, sir. Okay. Is there anybody who can help our brother? Because remember, when a fellow colleague explains, it makes more sense. Okay. Yes. Can anybody help out? Mr. Abraham, where exactly are you lost? The whole thing or there's a specific part? Jesus, God have mercy upon us. What's that reward? God have mercy upon us. Okay, yes. Somebody to think to help the brother. Okay, Mr. Abraham. Okay. Let's say you make samosas. Okay. Your business is samosa making. Okay, so you're going to say, okay, you're going to tabulate what is my electricity expense, what is my rent expense, what is my water bill, and any other indirect costs. Okay, so you find that when you tabulate, you find that your total overheads or your total indirect costs are 240,000. Are we okay on this first part, Mr. Abraham? You make samosas at home, okay? The indirect costs that you incur, rent, electricity, water, they come up to 240,000. All right. And then, okay, your materials to make these samosas, okay, the flour, the mincemeat, and what else? The vegetables, okay, that cost comes to 160,000. So now here you're trying to say that, okay, I want to include these overhead costs into the cost of the samosas that I'm making. I want to include these overheads into the cost of the samosas that I'm making. So in order to do that, you're going to absorb these overheads, these indirect costs that you incur, okay? You're going to absorb them through the material cost, the cost of the materials that you use to make the samosas. You're going to absorb the overheads through that cost. So the way you're going to do that is you're going to use this formula. Okay. You're going to say your budgeted overheads, the rent, the electricity, and everything, that's 240,000 over your material cost, the flour, the mincemeat, and everything. Okay. So 240,000 over 160,000, 1.5, 1.5 times 100, 150%. So what you have calculated now, Mr. Abraham, is your overhead absorption rate. This rate, you're going to now use it to calculate the overheads that you're going to incur based on whatever material cost you incur. So once you've calculated this 150%, and let's say January comes, you want to start producing your samosas. Okay, you buy all the flour and everything and whatever, and you find that cost comes to 100,000 kwacha. Then you're going to ask yourself, okay, now what about the overheads? I want to include them also so that I can find what is the total cost I'm incurring to produce these samosas. So since you've already got a rate that you pre-calculated, you're just going to say the overheads that I'm going to incur because my materials cost was 100,000, it's going to be 150% of this 100,000, which is going to be 150,000. So when you want to tabulate your total cost that you're going to incur when you're producing the samosas, you say, okay, for the samosas, I incurred direct materials over 100,000. Then my overheads that I've incurred are 150,000. So in total, the total cost that I've incurred, 250,000. Okay, this is your total cost that you've incurred, your direct materials and your overheads. I hope that has helped, Madam, not Madam, Mr. Abraham. So if you produce 1,000 samosas, the cost per samosa is going to be 250,000 divided by what is 1,000. So you'll be selling each samosa. The cost for each samosa is going to be 250 kwacha. That is the cost for each samosa. Is that okay, Mr. Abraham? Yeah. So since the cost of each samosa is 250 kwacha, so you can now determine, okay, now what will I sell my samosas for? Then you can say, okay, each samosa I'll sell it at 350 kwacha, so that you make 100 kwacha profit. Okay? Each samosa goes for 350 kwacha. Yes. Is that an abnormal price for a samosa, colleagues? One samosa, 350 kwacha? You'll be the most expensive in town. You just be like, no, let me not sell. But basically, colleagues, yes, that's I've just shown the whole process of how you have included the overheads, and then you've brought them into now the cost per unit. Are there any other questions, colleagues? Okay. Now we're going to absorb these overheads on the basis of labor cost. Okay, so just say budgeted overheads over direct labor cost. Okay. The labor cost was how much? 200,000. Okay, so 240,000 over 200,000. Okay, now let's say here you're making samosas and now you've got workers who are working for you. Okay. So 240,000 divided by 200,000, 1.2 times 100%. That gives us 120%. Okay. So meaning if you incur a labor cost of 100,000, what will be your overhead that you're going to incur? If your labor cost that month is 100,000, what will be the overhead that you're going to incur? Yes. Thank you. Colleagues, are we all okay with this? Okay. Okay. Then we can absorb them on the basis of prime cost. Colleagues, what is prime cost? Yes. And what are these direct costs? Wonderful. Yes. So direct materials was 160,000. Direct labor was 200,000. Okay, so the total prime cost is 360,000. Okay, so we're just going to say budgeted overhead over prime cost. Okay, budgeted overhead over prime cost 240,000 over 360,000 times 100%. Yes, 240,000 over 360,000. Okay, 0.67. So your overheads are going to be 67% over your your prime cost. Okay, so if that month when you're producing these samosas, you say, okay, your direct materials 100,000, direct labor also 100,000. So the overhead that you're going to incur, absorbed overhead is going to be 67% over 200,000, right? Because it's direct material and the direct labor. So that's 200,000. What is 67% of 200,000? 134,000. Okay, so the total cost you incur that month, 200,000 plus 134,000, you get 334,000. 334,000. Okay, so if you produce 100,000, if you produce, no, let's say, if you produce 10,000 samosas, okay, if you produce 10,000 samosas, what would be the cost per samosa? If you produced 10,000 samosas, so cost per samosa, the total cost you incurred 334,000 over 10,000. The cost per samosa is going to be 33 kwacha 40 ngwe. Okay, 33 kwacha 40. What if you produce 1 million samosas? Let's see. So that you see the difference between a bigger company and a small scale producer. Because here, the number of units that you produce is going to also have an effect on the final cost of the good. Okay, so let's say this is a small scale samosa producer, then they make 10,000. What about a bigger scale samosa producer who produces 1 million samosas per month? What would be the cost per samosa? No, 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 no. Hmm. 334,000. To be 30, 33 ngwe. 33 ngwe. Okay. So if you're producing samosas, colleagues, produce more, okay? Produce more so that your cost per unit is dropping. So that at least you can sell at least a samosa to kwacha. Okay. Yes. All right. Now we're going to absorb on the basis of machine hours. Okay. Yes, Mr. Abraham? Was it Mr. Ronald? No, it's not. I'm giving a scenario so that you see the whole picture. Yes. You see the whole picture. Mr. Kasono, you are quiet today. What is there anything? Next, we're absorbing based on machine. Okay, okay. Is it consumer friendly? Is this something that you attempt in the exam blindfoldedly and just get everything correct? Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, do not worry. Don't worry. The more we do, the better the understanding. So next, we are absorbing the overheads on the basis of machine hours. Okay, so budgeted machine hours. Oh, budgeted overheads over budgeted machine hours. So the budgeted overheads 240,000 over 12,000 machine hours. What what do we get? 20 kwacha per machine hour. Okay. So back to this scenario here, or maybe I'll give you these scenarios afterwards. Let me just finish the equations here. 20 kwacha per machine hour. Any questions before we go to labor hours? Okay. On the basis of labor hours, as budgeted or budgeted overheads over the budgeted labor hours. Labor hours 30,000. 240,000 divided by 30,000. labor hour. So yeah, that if that month, if in your production you took maybe 1,000 labor hours. Okay, if you took 1,000 labor hours, just multiply these 1,000 labor hours times 8 kwacha, your overhead that you incur will be 8,000 kwacha. Okay. If your machine hours were 1,000 machine hours, the overhead would just be those 1,000 machine hours times 20 kwacha. Then the overhead that you're going to incur is going to be 20,000 kwacha. Are we okay with this, colleagues? Because the goodness with cost accounting, you can use it for your personal business. Okay. On the basis of number of units produced, budgeted overhead over the budgeted units. Okay, so in this case here it was 8,000 units. Thousand units. So 240,000 divided by 8,000. 30 kwacha per unit. So if you produce 1,000 units that month, your overhead that you're going to incur is going to be 30 times 1,000 units. Okay. Any questions?